I appreciate being here, and thank you for putting on events like this during this time. It's a crazy time for everyone, as you are all experience. And for those of us in the film industry, it's a really interesting time because the demand for content and film and television has never been higher. People are watching more than ever before. And we are at a point right now where we can't be producing that content due to Corona, restrictions with insurance. And so it's a really interesting time as we navigate to figure out how to get back to work so we can continue to give everyone in communities all over the world things to escape from. And it's interesting to see because people think at times like the Great Depression that people would not want to be spending money on content and films. And it's actually the opposite. During the Great Depression, film boomed and more people were going to the movies to escape real life and to see what's going on. So and this is one of the reasons I got into film, was the beauty of how art affects what is going on in the world, and what is going on in the world affects art. And we're seeing that as we speak, and things are changing on a daily basis in terms of how we're going to produce movies, what type of films and television are going to be produced, the way we make them. Actually, the technological aspects of it are changing, all because of what is going on. So we are really appreciative of the continued support of watching things on Netflix, Amazon, Premium VOD, wherever you can get it, and especially films like Ovid, that for any independent film, it is a miracle that movies get made, and they are never easy. And an independent film that is financed on a low budget and made on a quick schedule in the middle of Detroit, it's amazing that it can get out there in the world, and it's a testament to the quality of the project and the people involved. So I want to introduce at this moment, we have Ben Weisman, our producer on the project, and Ben Hal's living in New Jersey right now. And he has done numerous projects across really all aspects of entertainment, film, television, and Broadway. He has produced Broadway tours of such hit plays as Peter and the Starcatcher and the off-Broadway play Stalking the Bogeyman, which is and has a new upcoming one. Hopefully that will be going at some point when theater can get back. So Ben, thank you for being here. Excited to see you again. It's been quite some time. And of course, we have none other than Esme von Hoffman, our director and writer and brilliant mind behind this project, which is a very, very unique project, and an interpretation, an adaptation, whatever you want to call it, of a classic story, but set here in Detroit, and an incredible way to tell it. And it was a beautiful script to begin with, which is why when they had reached out to me and thought about coming to Detroit, and I took a read and wanted to get involved and help out in any way I can. So thank you both for being here to talk about this film and filmmaking in general. So why don't we kick it off? And Esme, why don't you just tell us a little bit about the project, background, the story for those of the people who have not seen it yet. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so the film is based on the life of the ancient Roman poet Ovid. It tells, it's sort of a coming of age story, and him becoming a successful artist and experiencing both first love and then sort of maturing and understanding what love is. And at the same time, he crosses paths with the brutal emperor, who's sort of an authoritarian leader. So he stands up to this strong man, essentially, which is one of the things that drew me to the project. And then there are sort of certain parallels with today's world. So we wanted to update it in a way that made it accessible. So we created sort of a fun world that's half ancient and half modern. So in that world, Detroit stands in for Rome because Detroit is the America's industrial empire. And like Rome, Detroit has seen better times and worse times, but it's very resilient, and it has such a fantastic arts community. So we were really blessed to be embraced by the arts community and work with fantastic producers like EDDIE and incredible musicians, visual artists, crew, cast, etc. It was really a joy filming in Detroit.
Great. And both Ben and Esme, tell me a little bit, did you have any connections to the city prior? Sort of, how did you get into it and embed yourself and really become a part of this community? And by the end of it, I know you had some lifelong friends that were made from being here in the film community, but did you have connections prior to Metro Detroit and the city, or did you come in cold?
I mean, I'll start for me just briefly and beyond. Honestly, I had never been to Detroit prior to getting involved with this project. It's certainly, and I'm sad to admit that, because I've fallen in love with Detroit and been back a number of times. As you mentioned, I've developed just some amazing friendships and the deep admiration for the community and for the artistic community that Esme talked about. You know, I think so much for all of us who work in the arts field, you know, we're looking for kindred spirits, looking for people who believe in the power of art to not only tell a story, but also affect change, believe in the power of art to make a positive difference in so many different ways. And, you know, to see that and more in Detroit, not to mention some of the most amazing food I've ever had, was just phenomenally exciting. And it's a place that, that I've learned so much about and and love.
Yeah, so I have had family members going back to my grandparents that have made, and their siblings that have made Detroit their home for various periods of time, including my father, who went to Wayne State. So I have familiarity. Also, my family is from various parts of the industrial Midwest. So I have familiarity with it, and I have friends out there. But in developing the story, I wanted to make sure that it felt organic to people that were living there. So I started talking with producers and artists on the ground, and over time, and I think we had a producer, Edmund Zagoran, that led to, I think, Ben Friedman, that led us to EDDIE. And I went and spent a lot of time in Detroit and talked to various artists and wanted to make sure that the story felt like it would resonate with the community and not be me sort of, you know, putting my vision on the city. And people responded well, and they gave their own creative input. And so sort of through that melding of ideas and visions, we came up with a creative, crazy world that is Ovid and the Art of Love.
Fantastic. And it's great that you mentioned sort of the arts community here in Detroit. And as I'm sure everyone on this phone call or Zoom call recognizes, Detroit and Michigan really have an incredible history of the arts in theater, in film, in music. It's really amazing to see, and I think we're really fortunate. And back that started in 2000, end of 2008, Michigan did have the film incentives. And so there were a lot of projects here. In 2010, there were more projects shot in Michigan than any other state in the country. And I think in any other country in the world. More projects were shot here. I think it was something about 110 projects were done in the state. And it was an amazing time. And unfortunately it has gone away. But what's really great to see is the community from here, people who have worked here, may not be from here, who have stayed connected to the arts here. And also the people from the community here who have gone out and are living in New York, LA, all over the place. In California, they actually call it the Michigan Mafia, as the group in the entertainment industry, because there is such a huge contingency of people working in the entertainment industry that went to Michigan or Michigan State and were from Michigan. You know, you have the greats like Jerry Bruckheimer. Some people don't know this, but Francis Ford Coppola was actually born here, and the middle name comes from Ford. And so there's just such a long history of people. And it's always nice to have new people come into the city and discover it and work here. Tell us some of your memories being here, or some of the great ones, and also maybe some of the challenges you faced with making this movie and being on the ground here in Detroit.
I'll just quickly, Eddie, just, you know, and that tradition that you're talking about continues in such a strong way through today. Michael R. Jackson, who just won the Pulitzer, being the first African-American man to ever win the Pulitzer for writing the book lyrics and music for a musical. He was born in Detroit and traces so much of his artistic motivation, his artistic vision to his experiences growing up. And it's an amazing show, A Strange Loop, that I highly, highly recommend it, that hopefully will have more life once theater is allowed to happen again.
I was actually just in contact with him. We had connected, and it's always great because there is always, it seems to be such a joy when a Michigan artist, be it film, television, theater, finds another one and you just connect. And there's just this instant connection that you have.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter where you are in the world, what else you're doing, who you are, what level you are. The minute you say you're from Michigan and someone else is, there's just this connection. And so we sort of hit it off and are now talking just simply because of the fact that we're both artists from and still living in Michigan. So
yeah, it's and I think that to me is one of those memories that sticks with me, is these conversations with people, be it on set or at a sports bar afterwards or later, or, you know, just talking about life, about art, about what matters. That it just, some of these just the deepest, just most amazing conversations with people. I think about you know, someone in our art department named Jen, who, you know, who walking around her neighborhood with her and her pointing out it's moments of places of inspiration that have helped define and helped guide her, from a tree that is now looking more healthy to an abandoned house, but that has such beauty there. I think those conversations have really stuck with me. And I know have inspired me as I've looked at what I want to do and what kind of impact I want to make. And, you know, and again, I'll just say the food again, which I'm perhaps getting hungry, but I keep coming back to just some of the most amazing barbecue, the best macaroni and cheese I've ever had in my life.
Where's your go-to place for macaroni here?
You know, I don't remember. There was a bar. It's a garage that got converted into a bar and a restaurant. Right. I'm trying to remember the name of it right now. I'll think of it.
Woodward?
That's exactly right.
Dale.
Yes, on Woodward.
Which, what's it called?
Yeah.
Instead of garage.
Instead of garage. Yeah. Now I'm really getting hungry. But that place sitting in the back there up against the wall, we had a night where a bunch of cast and crew, we were all there. And my goal that night was to get Corbin Bleu to tell me about being on Dancing with the Stars, because that's my guilty pleasure show. And I achieved that goal, but I also achieved just, again, this mac and cheese. Which...
So on that note, Ben, you know, for those of you who have not seen it, for such a small budget film, really had an incredible cast, including Corbin Bleu from High School Musical fame, and has gone on, and obviously classics like John Savage and all of the films he has done. And really fortunate, I think, to get such an incredible cast. And it's a testament to the script and Esme and your ability and what you have done with them. Talk a little bit, Ben, you mentioned the house, an abandoned house. Talk a little bit about the locations, because I think for me, the film, a lot of people came to make movies here, and really it was sort of the ruin porn and seeing a decrepit city. And it's interesting because you see that in the film, but there's still such a sense of hope and aspiration. And I think you did a really great job of balancing that and showing some incredible places. I mean, including, for those of you who don't know, there's this beautiful scene in a building in an abandoned swimming pool, and that's actually at the top of the Masonic Temple. I had no idea that that even existed, but there used to be a swim club at the top of the Masonic Temple. They have houses, and this was really cool for me, being someone who was from here, getting to scout these locations with them, because some of this I did not even know. And they actually have a full service living quarters in the Masonic Temple for people to stay at, apartments, essentially a little hotel. Like I said, it had a full gym and swimming pool, and it has all been left alone. But talk a little bit about the locations and what that was like and what you found here and the balance of not just showing the ruin of the city.
I'll just say one or two words about that, but then let Esme, really talk in detail, because, and this is where I have to give her just an enormous amount of credit. I've been fortunate to know Esme for a number of years, and she is, and this is sort of funny to say it as she's sitting, 2 squares of pictures to my left, but she is one of the most thoughtful and not to mention intelligent people you're going to come across. And in the arts, to have somebody who cares so deeply, not just about the product, but also understands the consequences, understands the impact, and is so thoughtful about that, really inspired me throughout this project. And so, I'll let Esme talk about some of these amazing locations that were found, but I just so appreciate throughout. It was always about, we heard time and time again from people, are you coming here to blow something up? And the fact that we could say, no, we're coming here to tell a story, to me was just an absolutely crucial part of this.
Esme, before you go on the talking about the locations, just a note that came up, a fun little fact that I think people will enjoy. The idea of blowing things up in Detroit was actually really intriguing to filmmakers, because when you pull off stunts and special effects like fires, it can tend to be costly. And fortunately or unfortunately, one of the benefits of filming in Detroit back in the heyday of the incentive is the Detroit Fire Department would basically pay you to have a building set on fire that they could then come put out and manage and use as training. So normally where you may pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to have fire safety and all of this stuff, directors like Michael Bay, who are huge action directors from Armageddon to the Transformers movies, just had an absolute joy of blowing things up. And it was sort of just fun for people like the Detroit Fire Department, and they would be willing to, bend over backwards to help you. And in turn, it actually helped them with training and different scenarios. So just a fun little fact. All right.
Yeah, so to tie back to your question about sort of what struck about Detroit, I think the creative capital of where there's something very pure about people's excitement about the arts that's not tainted by much else. Like I found in general, more than perhaps anywhere I've been, people were just really excited about ideas and art. And so going and sort of developing the movie, I'd meet somebody who said, oh, this person's really doing these amazing things. You got to go check out, this gallery. And so I felt like I was, going, it was moving farther and farther into a world. And so I really wanted to share all the sort of exciting, often grassroots art that was being done. So, we were able to film in a lot of, we were able to film in sort of bigger places like the Detroit Public Library, Masonic Temple, but we were also able to film in a lot of really cool little galleries like the Baltimore Gallery and Tires, which is a music venue that isn't there anymore, but was a great spot for a while, and various cafes and I think in an art park, and sort of show off this amazing visual language. And also, I feel like Detroit, at least as far as I know, I mean, other cities have graffiti, but Detroit really seems to me to have taken it to a new level, and that you could like paint an entire building if you wanted to. So the canvas here is just really, really incredible. So it was exciting to sort of show that. And I think I was a little inspired by the movie Wings of Fire, which sort of showed Berlin at a crossroads. My grandfather was originally from Berlin until he had to leave in 1936, but it's a city that's near and dear to his heart, and I was impressed by how they showed that city at a crossroads, and I was really inspired by the people, you know, all sorts of artists in Detroit, and so we sort of wanted to capture this moment in time of, you know, yes, 2009 and the economic crash had happened, but, you know, there were all these incredible people, you know, working to make it an incredible, lively, dynamic city. So that's part of it. Yeah, so that was, I guess, inspiration. And then we would just get excited. We'd be like, oh, this place is so neat to look at. So yeah, we always, you know, we were excited by it. We want to share it with everyone else.
Great. Talk a little bit about, you know, being a newish filmmaker on the feature side. What was it like working with some of the talent like John Savage, and what was that experience, and how did you feel? Were you nervous? How did it play out? Was it everything you thought it would be? Was it different? Talk a little bit about that and working with an incredible cast that you had.
Yeah, well, I should say that John was an absolute delight to work with. He's a really incredible artist. He's very method and intense about getting into his character. So he would do all these improvisations and to sort of bring out the layers of his character, which I thought was really neat. And something about, I think, all of our actors that made it a great experience. For the most part, we cast Detroit actors, but our lead stars were not from Detroit. And I think they'd all really sort of bought into the idea of this is, you know, going to be this great experience where we're really like immerse ourselves in the Detroit community, and we're excited about it. So I think we were lucky in that we had, you know, star talent that was really, you know, excited to be there. You know, a memory I have was Corbin Blue, who plays Ovid, does these, we set up his poetry to be read at real sort of, well, staged poetry slams, but we used real Detroit spoken word artists. So we were always sort of blending sort of real art and, you know, I guess Ovid is real art, but ancient art and modern art. And it was really, you know, cool to see how, you know, Corbin meshed into this, you know, Detroit poetry slam world. Michael Ellison, who played the MC, who's a really fantastic spoken word artist, made it such a fun set for those days that we filmed. He had like, he got the audience totally riled up, and he, you know, he made rivalries. He said, like, you know, the right side of the room needs to out yell the left side of the room, and we just all had like a really fantastic time. Those are just some of my favorite memories.
Mike Ellison, for those of you who don't know, is a local artist here, and actor, and really during the incentive, and I hope he goes on to have a further career, but he just really made a name for himself in the community here, and was getting cast. And I did a film with him back in 2011, one of the first ones when I was out of college, called Love and Honor, with Liam Hemsworth and Teresa Palmer. And Mike came in, there was a role, it takes place during the Vietnam War, and there's a role for a Black Panther who has a small but very pivotal scene with a very big speech. And we were actually going to go out to some larger, quote unquote, star talent and bring someone in for sort of a one-day role. And Mike came in, and he wasn't even supposed to audition for that role, but said, hey, can I just read this? I read the whole script and really liked this part. Can I just read for it? And we said, why not? And at the end of it, all of the producers, the director, the casting director, our jaws were on the floor. from his performance, and on the spot cast him in the role. And we forgot about casting anyone else from LA or New York just because he was so talented. And that was really one of the special things, I think, at the time during the film incentives of this discovery of people who may not have had the chance to be discovered and got placed in films and, you know, were acting in movies alongside some of the top stars, Hugh Jackman, et cetera, of the day. So it was great to see him go through multiple films and be a part of them. Talk a little bit about your process from putting something on the script to the screen. What was the process like for you? Talk about the time it took. And we'll explain to everyone, you know, because I think some people will be surprised. It's not something that's done overnight, especially on the independent level. But all of the good ones, I really do believe, are the ones worth waiting for. So talk about the process of this. When did you start? Come up with the idea? Where did you go from there, and everything?
Yeah, so it's taken years. I always wondered when I looked at other films, I was like, why does it take so long? And even though I had, you know, I worked a lot as an editor and other parts of, you know, production, I'd never fully seen a movie from absolute beginning to end, and it takes a while. And once you do it, you're like, oh, I guess this is why it takes so long. Just because especially if you're an independent movie, you really, you want to get it right, and you don't always have the resources to get it right quickly. So you have to choose. I think they say something like you get, you know, cheap, fast, and good, and you get to pick two of those. So we really wanted to get it right, and we didn't have a crazy big budget at all. So yeah, so I sort of had this quirky idea about Ovid and togas and sneakers, and I made a short film years ago, and just with some friends, and I showed it around, and people responded well to it. And even though the characters were wearing togas and sneakers, people said, oh, it's so natural. And things like, oh, it's interesting. It's like about ancient Rome, but it's really about our time. And because I got some industry interest, we were able to build it. So then I had to write the full script, and then there's a casting process, and that takes a while. And you kind of line that all up, and then you have to start going into production. So you're gotta get, you know, all your locations and your crew. Because I was, you know, so excited about working with the Detroit art scene, I had started looking into some of the locations and partners, you know, as I was developing the script. So that informed the script that I wrote. In fact, I wrote in certain locations, although I think by the time we went into production, you know, we switched some of those around. Also, I guess you're asking what the challenges were. You know, there were certain, you know, little arts establishments that when we started were not there by the time we filmed. So, you know, always adapting. But that's the lovely thing about the Detroit art scene. There's always new things popping up. And then we filmed, and there's a whole post-production process, which, and then you go to a festival. We had our festival premiere in August, and then, you know, it takes a while to release it out into the world. So that's sort of that in a nutshell.
And what's amazing too is, you know, yes, it's hard for independent films to get out there and get made, but even great studio Academy Award-winning films often take a long time. You know, a favorite of many people's is Forrest Gump. And from the time that was written to the time you saw it on screen was 13 years. If you can imagine that timeline. And originally when that script was first written, people didn't necessarily get it. They didn't think it was gonna be good. Who would actually want to play this character? And it really is amazing to see, again, as I said earlier, how art affects commerce, and you know, what's going on in the world affects the art. And it's really true for this industry. You'll see things like after September 11th, films, a lot of people had movies that were about the wars, and they all tanked. because people didn't want to see those movies. We were seeing it in real life. We were seeing it on the news. And so for years after September 11th, people stopped making movies about war, even if it wasn't about September 11th directly, but just had a war element to it. That's one of the things, what was going on in the world stopped that. And that was the case for the film Love and Honor that I did. It was actually first written and taken out right before September 11th hit. And it, it takes place during the Vietnam War. The main character is a soldier. It's a love story. It's not about war. And it had everyone attached at one point. Leonardo DiCaprio was attached, Jake Gyllenhaal, and it just kept going into turnaround and would not get made because people, studios, financiers did not think people wanted to see war films at the time. And so finally, I came into the picture, and that was actually written by University of Michigan screenwriting professor Jim Bernstein. And that's how I came to the project. And sure enough, in 2011, 10 years after it had actually been first taken out, it was shot. And then a year later, 2 years later, released. So the process of filmmaking is arduous. And people, it's funny, people often say, oh, you're film producers, film directors, you must make a ton of money. It's fantastic. And what I say is, yeah, on this one film, I made a ton of money, but then spread it over 13 years. And let's see if it actually even equaled minimum wage. And so it changes.
While we're talking about process and the interaction between, I guess, art and life, but film and life specifically, we have a couple questions from the audience that are sort of about these issues. The first is probably a simple question. Someone asked if any of the locations you wanted to shoot at said no. And then someone else was asking about how you as a group, I guess none of you are literally the PR managers, but how is the film doing in terms of getting the wide audience that you'd like it to have, given the current challenges?
I'm trying to think about locations.
Yeah, why don't you speak to the locations?
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember.
I honestly don't remember any locations saying no. There were certainly locations that, I think as Esme articulated, we were interested in that weren't there, or for some reason maybe couldn't host us. But people, I don't recall anyone actually saying no. I don't want you here. You can't be here. Really, it was the opposite. I remember somebody coming up to a group of us after we were done shooting and saying, "Can you come film in my backyard?" And actually wanting us to come shoot, which was. But I'm not recalling anyone actually saying no.
I can't recall anyone that said no either. I think more from a logistical challenge of filmmaking is that to keep on schedule and on budget, you don't want to have to make huge moves. So you're trying to find like your best locations by keeping them close together. And then you need like a bathroom that people can use. So there's a lot of sort of like logistical things that have to be right for a location to shoot in. So, I think sometimes, because, something was too far away compared to the other locations that day, we weren't able to shoot there. But I think, we sort of prioritized certain things and we were very lucky in where we did get to shoot.
That seemed to be a theme, I think, in the Detroit filmmaking community, that you'd be walking down, scouting a restaurant, and someone else would see that you're part of a film, and they'd want you to come to their restaurant or their house. And it was really such a joy. I still live here, but I really, truly miss, not just because it's my hometown, filming here, because not only were the crews and the talent so great, but everyone in the communities around Detroit and the suburbs just seem to really like it and enjoy having us there and invite us, versus places like New York, where if they see you're a film crew, they pull out their shotgun so you get away from their curb because they don't want you there. They've had enough of the disturbances from film crews. So it was really a refreshing thing to be working here and having that. Talk a little bit about that question in terms of the PR and how has Corona affected it, and what's the plan and how's it going?
You know, I think you know, we're lucky in that we are getting quite a bit of good press, you know, there's sort of advantages to having sort of the breakdown of the system for a smaller independent film, because we're, you know, released next to bigger films, and we're all streaming. We can't do theatrical, so essentially, you know, there's no way to say like, oh, you're going to get a bigger theater. Like, we're all on iTunes and Amazon, et cetera, together. So I think that's given us a lot of opportunity. A sort of sad thing about releasing at this time is that I've noticed there's certain publications that have wanted to do an article, and then a lot of their staff gets laid off. There's been huge cuts to publications due to drop in advertising. So that's been sort of a sad side of doing it. But, you know, I guess people are watching through their Netflix queues, so they're looking for new content. And I do hope, and I do believe that this movie has a message of resilience. So hopefully it's a good message for the current time.
Can you talk about a few of the places that you can see it right now?
Sure. Well, there's a link I know in the chat that brings to a bunch of different platforms. So thank you for putting that in there. Certainly, in addition to the ones Esme mentioned, you know, it's available across a number of different cable providers, VOD, pretty much anywhere you might stream movies, you'll be able to see this one. And there's as I said, there's a link that directs you to a whole host of different platforms. Just Eddie, I wanted just to come back just briefly to the comment you made about the impact what you saw sort of after 9/11 with war movies. And I think in this moment, we're talking a lot about this in the theatrical community, to be sure, as well. It's that question of what is, not only what content is going to be created, but whose content is going to be able to be seen. And I think one of the things that is on the horizon is this potential consolidation of creators, where it's going to be much harder for people who don't have a well-known voice to get work out there. But I think what audiences are looking for, and this speaks to what Esme was talking about, audiences are looking for some things that are a little bit different, that aren't cookie cutter, that aren't safe, that are really exciting and are beautiful and innovative, which this film really is. And so I think, you know, it's a horrible time, but I think as people look for new content, this is a film that people are responding to across different, you know, demographic groups, and it's exciting. It's exciting to see, and I hope, you know, hopefully everyone is watching it in good health, because what we're going through as a country, as a world right now, is horrible. And so, you know, I know Esme and I have talked about, you know, our hope is that people are healthy, are safe, and, you know, are able to enjoy this film in good health.
Absolutely. And that's why we continue and hope to continue to create content and produce theater. You know, I think theater as well has taken a big hit. You know, there are talks that Broadway's not coming back until 2021. And I mean, to think about that, from March until January of next year, to have no theater when people need that escape more than anything, it really is tragic. And it's also interesting, as I mentioned earlier, how it's shaping how productions, I mean, I've had conversations about films that, you know, right now, if you want to film, in terms of actors may not be willing to have intimate scenes, kissing, sex. And so people are literally writing out movies that may have had a very important sex scene. They're gone. People are writing them out of movies and changing not only how we make the movies, but what the actual content is. And one of the big, you know, questions and discussions among producers and creators is, when you create something post-COVID, what world are you showing? Are you showing a world where when the friends on the street see each other, they shake the hands and hug? Or are you showing the world post-corona where they are no longer hugging? And what is the world that we should show? And as creators, we have a responsibility to the communities, to people across the world, to sort of represent what's going on, while at the same time, you know, being truthful, while at the same time giving hope. that we can move on? So it's a really interesting question in my mind, and I don't have the answer right now. I don't know what it's going to be like and what are we going to show in the movies, you know. And it's interesting to think, I have a 3-year-old daughter, and imagining when she goes to the movies 5-10 years from now, is she going to see someone shake a hand and be like, what is that? What is handshaking? Because handshaking may no longer exist in our world. And it's really strange to see how we are going to represent that and change that in art.
So I have a more practical question.
Yes.
As I was watching the film, I loved, obviously, all of the locations, many of which I recognized. I know this is a little nitpicky, but there were so many places that just looked unsafe. You know, it was like, there should be a railing there, those steps are crumbling, blah, 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 blah. So, you know, I'm wondering how you managed to keep people safe amidst rusted metal and crumbling steps. And I mean, these were beautiful spaces on screen, of course, but like me as someone who puts on events and has to worry about railings, I was worried about railings. So how did that work?
Well, it was why we had such a big cast and crew, so that if we lost a couple people, it would be, you know, it was certain. I come from an event planning background, so I empathize with that. And you know, the first thing you look for is where the bathrooms are. The second thing is what that's it, right? Our crew and our locations team did such a phenomenal job in not only finding the right space visually, but making sure it was safe. And we had teams going in and really confirming that everywhere we were. We were not going to take a chance and put our cast and crew in any danger whatsoever. And to the extent of, if we were in an area that might have some more dangerous parts, we would actually have things, you know, guarded off or coned off to say, you know, this is where you can go to, this is where what area is safe and what's not. And that was something that was, I think, really important.
Yeah, and to loop back to the question about did we ever get rejected from locations? This wasn't a getting rejected, but it was us rejecting locations. You know, that was a consideration we had to take into account. And we were really lucky to work with cinematographer Jeff George, who's a good friend of Eddie's, and he's a you know, born and raised Detroiter, and he really knew incredible locations and had photographed a lot of them. So he brought us some of the locations, but he was really helpful in saying, you know, I know this is structurally stable and this isn't, which, I mean, clearly our locations people worked on too, but I do remember, because Jeff was such a sort of encyclopedic knowledge of certain of, you know, the certain of the dicier ruins that we shot on, where he'd say, like, you know, this part of the structure, like, I know that's safe. And so then we, you know, we shot like on the Packard plant. So we kept to, you know, certain areas because there's different buildings that are more structurally sound than others.
And the other piece, yeah, I'll just say real quick, Eddie, you know, is that, and this is something that no matter what industry any of us are in, I think applies, is that we really fostered a set where people were comfortable raising their voice if something didn't feel right or feel safe. And, you know, being able to have a place where people felt comfortable saying something to any one of us was really, really important to us. And we fostered that from day one, which helped both create the kind of fun and dynamic set that Esme described, but also set where if somebody were to be in a position or that they weren't feeling 100% confident, we could have that conversation.
I think safety and just exploring when you come into new locations is one of the joys, I think, that all of us as filmmakers get in, as filmmakers who have worked all over the world. Recently, a couple of years ago, I was scouting for a movie in Tunisia, and one of the concerns was security and how do you handle it there. And sure enough, through some various connections, got connected to an ex-Mossad agent who then got me connected to the State Department. And next thing I know, I have you know, an entire extraction team on speed dial out of Israel, and helicopters ready if something went wrong. And actually there was a terrorist attack, unfortunately, while we were there scouting, and had to pull the plug and get out. And my mother, who was on this line, I waited till I was safe to call her and tell her that I was safe, because being a Jewish mother, I knew she probably would have had a heart attack had I told her in the moment what was going on. But these are things we face. When I filmed in China, someone had told the authorities that we were making a propaganda movie, and we were locked in a location, and I thought I was going to end up in a Chinese jail for the rest of my life. And you walk into places and it can be scary, but it also is one of the most incredible things I think about this life. And I have gone to places that I would have never imagined I'd be, and got to see things and be a part of things. And, you know, especially in places like Tunisia, getting tours of the Jewish area and learning about the rich Jewish history in Tunisia and countries like that was really incredible, and all because of what we do.
So now that your mother is having a retroactive heart attack, so we do have a couple more questions from the audience. Someone wants to know where you went after the shoot. Like, what were the restaurants and bars that you remember? I know it was a couple of years ago that you were shooting, but I guess this is our version of food geography here.
Well, again, I'll just say, now that I remember the name, thanks to someone putting in the chat, Vincetta was a place that, you know, I loved. You know,
One-Eyed Betty.
One-Eyed Betty. That's the other one I was trying to remember. Yes.
Greek Town. We also, gosh, no, I'm so bad with names generally. We definitely ate around places, Eastern Market, Trina Soaps, there you go. That was great. They've changed the name of the cafe, it was like the Harmony Cafe near where we, there was like a vegetarian restaurant, and I don't think it's there anymore. And it kind of had like 3 different names.
Golden Gate Cafe, I think.
Golden Gate, yeah.
Yeah.
It was also like a sort of a wellness center.
On Pat's Avenue. Yeah.
And then I'm a huge sports fan. I know there's a sports bar. I think it's inside the MGM casino. There was a sports bar in there that was a nice place. And they had Boston sports on, so it made me very happy there. I'm sure I just made some enemies on the call, but that's okay.
You live in New Jersey.
I do. It's why I just lowered my voice, because my window is open. So because you don't know who's walking by. No, I'm a Boston born and raised. I'm holding on to that, you know. So, you know, loving the Red Sox and now hating Tom Brady. So I'm very consistent with all of that. And yeah, but it was, and then just hanging out, you know. I think so much of what we ended up doing, we had rented a couple of houses for a couple of those of us who were coming in from out of town, and ended up, you know, sitting on the front porch with folks who from the team from Detroit, those of us who were, and just, you know, just talking and sharing stories. And those were just some of the best nights till very, very late, sitting out there talking.
Yeah, I thought it was great that I felt like everybody we met and worked with had like 4 different things they did. So like even the guards on the set were like musicians at night. So it was really amazing. And I think maybe Eddie, you got us the house that we rented. I can't remember, but the John who owned it, you know, had a urban farming nonprofit. So everyone was just doing like really amazing things. And there was, you know, even if you weren't trying, you stumbled on people doing these sort of incredible projects.
Jeff, who you mentioned, Jeff George, who was, again, born and raised here and spent a lot of time just photographing Detroit. And you can look him up and see on his website some of his photos. He unfortunately has moved to California since then to continue his career. But I highly recommend, I think he updates on a site coming, I can try to find the link. When he comes back, he would often do bicycle tours of Detroit because he knew the city so well in so many spots. And he actually got a call one day and he picks up the phone and says, hello. And he's like, hi, this is Jeff. He's like, hi, this is Quentin. And he goes, okay. And starts talking to him. And the guy's asking about, he's coming to town and wants a tour, and quickly realizes it was Quentin Tarantino. And Jeff's name had made it around because of his tours and what he had been showing people in places that people who have lived here for 30 years didn't even know about. that it attracted people like Quentin Tarantino to want to check it out. So really an incredible asset to the crew. And, you know, that was really with everyone. Everyone brought a piece of them. And I think, Esme, what you said was so spot on, that everyone does so many different things here. And we are all artists in different respects. And whether it is creating an urban garden or an art space or a cafe that brings in musicians, it really is a great place for people to get their start and discovered. And so hopefully that continues even post incentives of people coming here and working on projects.
Yeah, just to circle back to the safety question, I was thinking our locations manager, Dave Krieger, I remember the first time we talked to him, because he's another, you know, born and raised, lived all his life in Detroit, and he was down to like the asbestos level in every single ruin that we were contemplating filming in, which I thought was amazing. And we all immediately were like, yeah, he's our guy. He was really incredible. And you know, it's like, oh yeah, my buddy manages the library, so no problem to film in, you know, Detroit's main library, which I think, you know, in most cities would not have been available to us. So we got some amazing locations thanks to him too.
That's the nice thing too, that I really realized in Detroit, where you had a lot of the bigger films here too that could pay large fees to be there, but oftentimes the locations, they didn't care about that as much. They wanted to help out the small independent films. And even if you didn't have a lot of money, there was just this camaraderie and willingness to help others out, even if they weren't in the arts and entertainment industry. You know, if it was a restaurant owner or something else, they had struggled too. And that collective struggle, I think, really boosted everyone up in creating things. Whatever industry it may be.
Yeah, there's definitely a wonderful sense of community, which is sort of often how we found locations or other venues that we're using. Another of our producers, Michelangelo Zervos, is part of the Greek Detroit community. And so we got to house our cast, thanks to him, in this, you know, fantastic Greek hotel, which seemed very theme appropriate for the movie Ovid.
Do we have
I think,
go ahead, Jim.
Oh, I was just gonna say we have a couple of thank you type comments from the audience. And someone said they watched the Freedom Festival fireworks, which is a mouthful, from on the Detroit River from the top of the Masonic Temple. So I guess other people knew that there was stuff up there, I guess from the roof or something. We're getting close to the end here, so I just want to say that thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you to our guests, especially, of course. And one of the things I think that struck me the most about this film is that the space it was filmed in was as much what it was about as what it was about, if that makes sense. I think hearing you talk about how thinking about the locations informed your writing of the script, you very much see that on the screen. You know, you can see the way that the space and the narrative sort of interact. And so I highly recommend going to see it for everyone. You can see it from the comfort of your couch. The link is in the chat box. I will also send it in a follow-up email to everyone who registered. So thank you all for being here. Thank you to Ben Weisman, EDDIE RUBIN, Esmé von Hoffman for joining us this evening. Everybody stay safe. Everybody wash your hands and go see Ovid and the Art of Love. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all very, very much for having us.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,